Hello and welcome back to the Open Resorcery. It's Devi, and today I have one of my great friends, BenignFool, on again.
Hello.
And today we are going to be discussing how to do the work. What the fuck does that mean? You know, because anytime that you're going into something, they're like, put in the work, put in the work, put in the work. Where the hell do you start? So, what does put in the work or do the work mean to you?
I think that there's a little context for your listeners because the last time we got together, we kind of went on a tirade,
I mean, slightly, but it was fun.
slightly. And I will state for those of you that spend your days at Hot Topic and call yourself a witch, I'm not attacking you, but you know who you are. Okay? I think what it comes down
Now I
to,
remember that. Okay.
yeah, because that's what led to this conversation. I was like, damn, that might have been a little harsh. But at the
Possibly,
same time,
but I don't think
uh,
so.
th- you know who you are.
Hmm.
But for those of you that spend your time at Hot Topic and you pick up the clothes and you pick up the things and you want to be that, you need to put in the work. And here's what, in my definition, that means it's actually going out there and doing the research. Because I refer to myself as a Norse pagan or Norse polytheist. And anybody can do that. I can call myself XYZ, but you actually have to go in and do the studies and the research and see where you fall within that spectrum. Because the term pagan, I always thought just meant one thing. And oh, by the gods, no, it is such a huge gambit. Holy cow.
Well, yeah.
If
The
any
funny
of
part
them could
about
hear,
pagan is all it literally means is like a fucking hick. Somebody
yeah,
that's out in the countryside. It
yeah,
has nothing to do with how, who you're worshiping, how you're worshiping, anything like that. It is that you are a hick. And honestly, I still call myself a pagan. I still fucking do because I'm Texan and it makes sense. And so
I mean, we're both Texan. I'm from Tennessee originally. Okay. My great grandfather. Yeah, great grandfather was an actual legit Appalachian moonshiner.
beautiful.
Hick. Hick.
Like
So,
redneck. Let's
but
go.
but but that term again is one of those. It's such a shotgun term where it just branches everything that you have to know where you want to fall under. Where is your line in the sand, so to speak? For me, it was Norse polytheism, but it could have been Anglo-Saxon, it could have been Germanic, it could have been Lokiist, Hellenist, it could have been a lot of different fields. But for me, it was this. And I had to get there by doing the work, and that's understanding where is the vetted research. And I'm sure we'll fall into that conversation here in a bit,
Oh,
but
yeah. But vetted research is not the only aspect because vetted research will start there. We'll start with vetted research. That's like step one is doing
absolutely.
the research stage, figuring out, okay, what interests you, why it interests you, and then actually going and finding out the histories, the practices, things of that nature. So you're not going to be like, ooh, I do voodoo now, and then not know the first fucking thing about voodoo, right?
Or even think that, hey, I love voodoo, and now you're actually delving more into, oh, what's that other one? Santeria.
Oh yeah, confusing the two or um
Exactly.
oh.
Because I genuinely, 100% years and years and years ago, if you told me the word pagan, I would have thought the same thing that you and I made fun of last session of black candles and the black eyeliner and the listening to like Depeche Mode and Marilyn Manson while chanting in a forest. But again, I'm not
But
attacking anybody,
shit.
but you know who you are.
Yes, and I encourage anybody who's falling more into that category and maybe getting a little bit up in their feelings on this one, do a little self-reflection. A little
Oh, absolutely.
self-reflection. And I know there have always been times where people are there. They are kind of in that state. They are in that state of, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to start calling myself this, but they don't know enough yet. They haven't gotten there yet. And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, we've all been there. We've all stumbled through that. That is an awkward teenage phase.
Yes, that's pretty apt. you start finding things that are piquing your interest, but you don't know how to go about it. It's that particular individual that's like three lockers down from you, and you're like, do I like them? Do I not like them? They make me feel funny, but I can't stand to look at the face. What do I do? Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
All I can think of is wicked loathing. What is
Yeah,
this feeling so sudden and new?
yeah.
No.
It's that show. What's that stupid show I
Oh,
can't stand?
fuck.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh,
Uh,
God.
yeah, Detective Peralta and the other chick, they hate each other back and forth. They end up getting married.
Oh,
It's the same
100%.
thing. It's like I hate you, but damn, your ass looks great in that. Sorry, I just, yeah, okay,
100 fucking percent. Absolutely.
yeah.
No, and it's that awkward teenage phase where you don't necessarily know where things fit. Like I will put it this way. For me, I started with runes. I started with, working with runes, and me and my friend group, because I've spoken about it several times. When I was in high school, there was like 7 to 8 of us that we would meet like every goddamn day, had the
Mm.
same lunch periods, met before school, and we would be studying this shit and just talking about it together. This was my first introduction to I Ching. This was my first introduction to runes. First introduction to tarot. First introduction to, oh my God, what are those? I'm trying to remember those other cards that have like the star and the waves and the lines on
Oh,
them and whatnot. But we were
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
going into everything, trying to figure out what fits and what feels right, and just exploring that exploratory phase. Um, and
Okay,
it's
so it
doing that.
so it sounds like a lot of this because I think we've established that anybody who's listening to this aspect of do the work has made the mental decision and the adult decision, regardless of age. This is an adult decision that you are showing interest and you want more from it. So for you, your bridge into the introduction that dipped my toes in the water before I cannonball in was your friend group,
Oh,
who
absolutely.
you may or may not have known have had similar interests.
It was one of those things where it hit us all at the same time. Like we had known
Okay.
each other since middle school, and I started diving into Wicca. Like I
Okay.
did runes and I did Wicca, and I was kind of figuring
And
that out with the
hung out at Hot
elementals.
Topic and listened
I
to
did
Depeche
not
Mode.
hang out with Hot Topic and
I
everything
did.
like that.
I did. That
Like
was
I
me.
wanted the fucking trip pants. I'm not gonna lie, I wanted the fucking trip pants, but that shit was expensive.
I had a
Um,
pair of trip pants that were like
oh,
three
you
sizes too big.
dick.
So I think that that's probably the first end of it is finding a like-minded group.
Absolutely.
It- but that's touchy. That's touchy, and I say that because of a Discord group that I'm also part of. That friend group, whether it's your actual like legitimate, like you got lucky. You were already in like Flint with your friends, so you guys were already of the same mindset. But sometimes you have to go out there and find those groups, and it gets touchy. And I say that because you need to make sure that they are of the same morality end of it,
Absolutely.
because especially you went into honestly an end that I'm scared of. I don't like messing with that. And we talked about that this past Saturday, but
Ah,
I
yes, you don't like messing with divination and things of that nature.
I'm dipping my toes. We'll get into that later, but you dipped into that end and you felt safe because of that friend group. You have to know where that morality lies because again, it goes back to that example of,
Hmm.
hey, I'm interested in voodoo and now I'm doing Santeria. Like it's they're not the same.
Hmm.
And we ran into that issue recently in the Discord that I'm in that a longtime friend of the Discord, we have come to find out that had some particular views that were unfavorable. And you have to vet these things beforehand before you start delving down because you don't want to inadvertently go down that path and now you're this person.
Oh, absolutely. Like I think of it more in terms of energy, and I'll let me kind of like circle back just a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In delving into the divinatory aspects, it fit more in line with where we were, because most of us would have dreams and then the dreams would come to fruition. Most of us would get more of that intuitive feeling and then things would happen. So it was more of a, because we are already on this wavelength, this is where we're safe. And because we are in a group, we are safe to explore it together, but we already meshed with that line of thinking versus going into like diving directly into like the more polytheist, let's study gods, let's study, Hellenistic practices and, maybe the Kabbalah and things like that. So divination and diving into that was more of a, that was a safe space for us and more of a exploratory space for us.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. Again, it's a safe space. I hate to use the example, but we are adults in this channel,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like doing drugs for the first time. And I hate using that example, but um, you want to make sure you're somewhere safe, somewhere which if you fall, someone catches you. It's very 100% true. I'm gonna take a stab here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this was mid to late 2000s for you.
Oh, for me? Well,
Yeah,
yeah, because you and I are,
yeah.
we're only like, what, four
I'm
years apart?
I'm
Something like that?
saying that because that was a huge shift. I remember being in, God, maybe my junior or senior year in high school, and that making a huge wave front. And maybe it was because, and I hate, I know you didn't do it because of this. The Craft was a huge movie, and it was very influential for a lot of people.
Yes. No, I
And
I do not deny that I love the
yeah,
movie The Craft.
it's a
I
fantastic
fucking
movie,
love that movie.
but that was so influential. And I remember vaguely a lot of people trying to be like, your aura is this. I'm like, you are high. Can you stop, please? Because I don't know how someone's aura is chicken nuggets, but I
No.
respect your opinion.
No, I love
Are you
that.
s- are you
No,
saying my
it was
aura is
more of,
beige?
oh no, it was more of, all of us were disenchanted with the Christian notions
Okay,
because it didn't feel right. All of us had had similar experiences with, the Christian church and things not feeling correct. And it feeling like everything was off, like we were feeding into something that was more negative. And we're just like, okay, so where do we belong and where can we
okay.
explore? That kind of thing
So where
versus,
was your first step in all that? Like you guys made that decision. This isn't for us. We want something else. What was y'all's first step?
my mom actually comes into play in this one because it started with me and my two best friends. So it was
Okay.
the group of three little girls, right? Um, and she found a a Wiccan priestess's like online blog where she actually had like spell work and simple things like that to start working on and some research in there, and that she gave us the website, um, taught us a little bit about energy in terms of
Okay.
receptivity and projecting. So, masculine, feminine, things like that,
Yeah.
with the palms of the hands and how to maneuver it and visualization. And then she left us alone.
So so looking back, and now I'm doing my damnedest to try and to keep this away from being scroll because you and I both scroll way too hard. Um. So given that you went down a pretty gnarly path, you went immediately to divination, which you know my stance on that.
Yes.
Where would somebody listening to this, they're wanting to begin, they want to put in the work, they don't want to be that awkward teenager hanging out at a hot topic. What where would you tell them to go? Where would you tell them would be your first step? Dev is 16 years old. She is starting into this path where
14.
looking
14.
back,
Looking back, I was honestly,
where would you say for your listener, like somebody right now is listening to this going, Dev, guide me, help me. Where do I need to start? Where should I start?
okay, starting is more so, all right, pick a topic. And we're going
Okay.
to, if, you know, anybody that's choosing this path, they already have something that's kind of highlighted them to it. That it's like ringing in their head just minorly, like, oh hey, I'm attracted to this. Okay, I want you to go ahead and go towards it. what is attracting you to it. So if you are more attracted to, say, moon magic and things like that, you're very much into like moon, stars, things of that nature. Okay, start looking into astrology. 100%
Yeah.
start looking into astrology. One of the things I would heavily encourage as well is just looking into cycles. Now, everything goes into microcosm, macrocosm, right?
Okay.
You know, as above, so below, as within, so without. Um, Anything that's happening on a smaller scale is likely happening on a larger scale as well. As
Okay.
well. Oh goodness, my
Yeah.
Texan came out. Um,
Well,
but
again, pagan,
yes,
hick,
100%,
parallel.
100% opinion. Um, God damn it,
If y'all can't tell, this is why she asked me to be on this.
100 fucking percent. Fuck.
Because she talks about this at work, and it's so serious. She's like, "Yo, okay, we're gonna do like a podcast on this. We're gonna record about this, and it's super serious. Like, waste. Like, I'm very serious about what I do in my life. It's that level. And then we get in here, and she just breaks down. It's great. I love it.
Oh, absolutely.
But
No,
this is
I
real,
get the
though. This
giggles.
is. It's no different than like you said with your friends, because
Absolutely, and
that's
it
what
should
this
be.
is.
That's exactly what my approach to this channel is, and especially with the novice that's going in, they don't have direction. Just really examine your interests. It's not just, oh, I'm interested in magic overall. That's not how it happens. Typically,
Yeah,
there's something that's ringing towards you. Did you love the Marvel comics as a kid, and all of a sudden, like, you can't get Thor out of your head? Like Odin, just like
it's
that feels like
it's
it's something
funny.
that's drawing you
It's
to it.
funny.
Look
So
into it.
that is more like not Marvel, but that is funny. And I love how you said look into your cycles of things. And for me, when you said cycles, my brain went to patterns
Yes.
for some reason. So I'm a gigantic nerd. You know this.
I mean, welcome to
But
the club.
no, you don't get it, sweetheart. Um, I have I have $1,400 of Warhammer minis that I've painted and never played a single game of, because somebody said, "Hey, this looks like fun." Okay, I'm a freaking nerd. But what's funny is you mentioned patterns. Long, long before I made the jump to Norse polytheism, which I am, I picked up a Warhammer kit, and they said, "Well, these armies, and this is the let me try to use the term correctly, Adaptus Mechanicus,
Mm-hmm.
fa- pseudo fancy Latin, whatever. Games Workshop is amazing. Don't attack me. I love you guys." Um, But I said, "Tell me about these guys." Like, "Oh yeah, man, there's all these different factions." And he started rolling down through these things, and he actually said, "Space wolves. It's space Vikings." Like, how cool is that? That jumped into that. Don't judge. Don't judge. Don't
I'm
you
not
laugh at me.
I'm not judging. It's just that
It's amazing.
like all I can think is Cowboy Bebop. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's
it's no, no. That is space cowboys. This is space Vikings, and like,
no, but like I'm thinking Space Vikings in terms of Cowboy Bebop,
oh
like
yeah,
same type of universe, just Vikings. And I'm
oh
just
yeah,
like
no.
that
The
is fucking
stories of the
hilarious.
I will admit the stories of these are freaking badass. But then like later on, and God, I don't know if we brought this up in the last time we got together, but I found myself in a position where I was looking at videos online for something else, and a video popped up, and it was by this creator who's Norse polytheist. And I was like, oh, cool. I kind of disregarded it. And then, like 4 months later, I was on YouTube, and and a similar one popped up by another guy. I was like, "What? Okay," but it was all a pattern,
Mhm.
and it was like the cosmos saying, "Hey, maybe this is something." I've dipped my toes in a lot. I did Christianity specifically. We live in Texas, so Baptist,
Yep, same.
Methodist. I was baptized Roman Catholic. Don't judge. Um, I did a little bit of Hinduism, a little bit of Buddhist, and agnostic, and I found my way here because the patterns. So there's always, no matter what group, there's always going to be a pattern that follows. And you said about following your interest. You've nailed your interest of what has now called you. Now what?
All right.
As we bring this gigantic squirrel moment back to a head.
Absolutely. So you found your interest. Okay. Now we start looking at reputable authors. Now we start looking at people who are going through the experience. And now here's where we get into kind of tricky territory because we know that the TikTok witch is a thing, right? We know that the
Yes.
TikTok witch is a thing, and we know that there is, even though, yes, the opener sorcery is on TikTok, and I do the TikTok and I do a card of the day every day, and occasionally I'll put out little snippet videos where I'm just like, hey, this is a little bit of advice. But with that, start looking at people who are going through the experience. Start looking for reputable authors.
You say reputable. You've said that twice now.
Yes.
I need
And
you I need you to put a hard definition to that.
okay,
There's
if
there's
your
there's
author, if your
I know where
author
you're going with it.
has
There's
something
there's
in their
two
name called
paths.
Raven something or Silver something, put it to the side. That's an edgelord.
Which is funny because there's a person over here named Raven in your Discord.
Okay, Raven is different. Raven is different. That is,
Okay.
she's not an edgelord in that case. And hers comes from something completely different.
So
But
so
like
be
if you're
wary of the
looking,
edgelord.
be wary of the edgelord who is
Okay.
trying to be edgy for edgy's sake. If you see anything where it's like you're looking into spell work, for example, and they're like, here is how you mind control somebody. Like, oh my God, just fucking be gone with that shit. Okay? Like, be gone with that shit because that is going into magic for the wrong reasons. If you are going into a practice for the sake of manipulation, for the sake of control, for the sake of, attempting to create a situation which causes harm to somebody else, fuck off. Just completely fuck off. Okay?
I'll save you the step. If that's the path you're going, please do us both a favor. Turn off this podcast and please leave.
Yes, 100%. And like I will say out of experience, have I done negative things? Have I done baneful work? Yes. Yes, I have. I
Because
learned
at
my
one
lesson.
point we were all angsty teenagers at Hot Topic listening to Depeche Mode. We get it.
Yes. Well, no, I did some as an adult. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. But it was more so during like the dark period in
So
a
you're
sense.
you're stating that for your reputation for weaning out the
Reputable.
reputable. I was gonna say reputation over and over. Okay, your reputable sources. You have to look at their intent.
Yes.
See, I'm in that same boat, but a little different.
Okay.
Uh, it is you have to look at the morality overall
Mhm.
because in this is a shame. It hurts me at my spirit to say this. Here in America, the Norse community is being attacked by these groups. I don't wish to out the groups in this podcast. That is not my podcast to do so. But there are groups. You and I, we brought it up on Saturday
Yep.
when we were playing cards that use our religion to hide their, to put it bluntly, Nazi rhetoric.
Yep.
So when I have to vet my sources, because I'm going to do a shameless plug at the end of this podcast,
Oh, please do.
um, I intend to. Um, when I have to vet my sources, I don't just have to look at who's the creator, because you're saying look at the creators. I have to go deeper than that. I have to look at
Mhm.
who the creator's hanging with, because one of the people that we've looked at recently, I even pitched it to King about this guy, about this author. Turns out he's got some pretty terrible views that we never noticed
Mhm.
up until recently. The one author, turns out, actually had at one point coercion with these socialist groups. So when it comes to vetting your sources, you not only just have to look at what their message is, but what their morality spectrum is, because you are the group, the kin or the folk. I hate using that term in this regard because it's a dog whistle, which is another thing. But you have to look at the hearth that you're building with
Oh,
in that
absolutely.
regard. Because if the message might be pure, but if that person is hanging with ill reputable sources, you have to begin to question that. It's the same thing if you want to delve into magics or earth magic or star magic and you want it for the help of your family and the love of your kin and all that, but your friend started to get into, hey, so I got this thing. Uh, Coach so and so isn't going to be coming to school anymore. Maybe shouldn't that? So when you look at
Yeah.
reputation, you got to look at that. You have to.
Oh, absolutely. And I will put the example out there. So I told you it was me and my two best friends, right?
Okay.
One of them, she wanted to put kind of a label on everything, and honestly we're about to have a conversation about like white magic, black magic, things like that on another one, but she was like, I'm a black witch, I'm working with this kind of stuff. And like, ah, I remember I had one of those moments where I'm just like, okay, honey, you do what you
It's
do. But she wanted to like put labels on everybody, and you're a green witch, and you're a white witch, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like,
oh
yeah, it was fun. But
yeah, it's fun like a root canal.
oh,
But see,
100%. But it's
but see,
it's
even
so
that tells me,
cringy. It's so
yeah,
cringy looking back on it. But now that I can look back on it, I'm just like, okay, the reason why I felt like I would kind of go, yeah, sure, okay. It's more so because I loved her as a person, but there
yeah,
was a barrier there where, yeah, we didn't practice the same. And I will say, yeah, she did look into witchcraft for a little bit for all the wrong reasons. And now she is back in the Christian church. So it's one of those things where for her, that was an edge lord phase. That's
and
all
hey,
she wanted to do.
fair wind and calm seas. Fair wind and calm
Hmm.
seas free because even right out the gate, you're talking about putting the labels on there. My first thought was, wow, cool, you hang at a hot topic too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I use that as a meme, but again, you know who you are. You know
Yes.
who you are. And if it's not you, then it's your best friend, okay? If you don't know that person, it's you. I speak from a real dark place on that one. Gee. I dated an actual vampire, like an honest blood sucking vampire. That's a conversation post podcast.
Oh, I I'm curious. I am
Oh
a
yeah,
hundred
it's
percent freaking curious, and I we better get a story about this tomorrow during Cards
we
Against
will.
Humanity.
And honestly, depending on where my shameless plug comes in, we might be doing more of these sit downs.
Hundred fucking
But,
percent. I'd love to
but
have you on.
more in an open group form where instead of a rigid cast, we'll just do like
Yes.
a long play where it's just like 2 hours of us just bullshitting. But
I
okay,
yes, 100%.
so vet your sources. Back on track here.
Yes.
I'm sorry, party people. It is a Friday night. I just got off work. I'm stressed about the next couple days, but it's okay because the gods are with me.
Hundred fucking
Um,
percent.
and I'm drinking whiskey.
I mean, loose lips, but it's
Hey,
fine. You're good. You're good. We're back on track.
so
Vetting
we vet our
sources.
sources.
We vet our
So
sources and we look into history.
avoid
So,
the edge lord. Go into history.
yes, look into history. Because a lot of that will show you kind of the morphing of the thought processes. Now, this just may be me, but whenever I go into something, I like looking at the timeline of it because I like seeing how it evolved and maybe
Okay,
how it molded with the thoughts of the time, right?
that makes
So,
sense. That
Wicca,
makes sense. Yeah.
Wicca has, its roots in Hellenistic magic, right? It really does. And it went through all of the folklore and everything in Europe, and then it went down to Gardner, and he took that culmination and that evolution of it and put it all together. And then even from Gardner, it has evolved further because Gardner had the masculine and the feminine in his, right? He
Mm-hmm.
had the lord and the lady, and that's how the
Yep.
circle was supposed to work. But now it is all feminine in
Yeah.
several circles of Wicca. And that honestly is a bastardization of it if you look at it a little closer. So it's more of a look at the evolution of it. Not everything is rooted in, horrible things. So you find your reputable sources, you start looking into the history, and you start picking it apart. Now, the unfortunate part about, like folk magic and things of that nature where it is that was more homegrown and had to go underground because that was seen as like something you could die for a
Yeah.
very, very long time in Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these folk practices, like they just literally went under the table. I have spoken to a man who was like he grew up around it. He's an older man. He's a practicing druid, and
Oh wow.
yeah, and it broke my heart to talk to him because he would speak on these small villages where instead of passing down the books and the knowledge and everything, because it was very hush hush, you didn't talk about it. These practices were held just within the family in these small communities, and these books would be burned,
Oh wow.
but instead of being passed on because these were like family secrets. And that just like stabbed me in the heart, because that is a link and an evolution that I would love to see the rest of. But I know gaining trust in those kind of communities is extremely difficult for good reason, for
That's
absolute good reason.
and that's
But
interesting. You're saying that breaks your heart because you wanted to see that.
mhm.
From my standpoint, that's a red flag.
Why?
Because when you have centralized practices in which it's centered only within that family, and then to go beyond the family, it must be destroyed. That raises a flag. Why does that have to be destroyed? That to me, from my end of it, goes into vetting our sources,
Yeah.
because typically from our end, at least what little I know, and again, shameless plug at the end of this, stick around. Um, that insinuates that there was misinformation.
No.
And again, there's a difference end of it from your end versus mine.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know my history as well as some of these other people do, I made that very clear from the last time I was on here, that your end of magic and faith and belief was from a more written practice than mine was. Mine was strictly storytelling.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm not saying that it was, more of a written practice. That is a misinterpretation.
Okay.
Think of it more as these are their personal notes. These are things that, maybe grandmother, four times down the line, like great 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 great
Okay.
great
Okay.
grandma, she wrote
Okay.
down because she was able to write stuff down and she was literate. And these
Okay.
were medicines, these
Yeah, I'm
were
seeing it in the other way
charms
where
and things like that. These were like
it's
personal notes, not
okay.
necessarily like a, oh,
This
this
is
is your religion and it's
Yeah,
just
this is
this and da 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 da
less
da. Yeah.
deviating from the river, more of, and I hate some one of y'all out there is gonna make fun of me for this. This is less of deviating from the river to go off on my own path because I think this is more right than that is. This is more Severus Snape, Half Blood Prince. I'm writing in the margin of the book because this was this and this it didn't work. This is okay. I got you now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, no, no. I
Again,
got you
you're
on
you're
that
talking
one.
about
That's
burning books. I'm just like,
no, no,
why do you
it's
need to burn it? Why would you not share what works? Because we got
no,
family. But no,
absolutely.
it makes sense. No, I got
No,
you. I
with
got
that,
you.
it's burning the books because in that they are very, we can talk about like open and closed practices on that, right?
Yeah.
So open practices would be like anybody can practice, anybody is welcome, things like that. Closed practices are more of you need to be initiated.
Yeah.
You are not in this practice until you are initiated by somebody inside of it already.
And I have my questions regarding initiation, but that is a thing for offside this podcast because I have questions that I need to get a hold of Eminem and King about. We need to have some conversations.
Oh, 100%. And
I saw
honestly,
a thing the other night.
I would love to have a conversation with all of you guys just
Oh,
about the rite of
yeah.
initiation to
Yeah.
begin with, cuz I think
Oh yeah.
that in and of itself would be a wonderful conversation.
And it's going to be, and we'll
Absolutely.
discuss more of that with the shameless plug at the end of this podcast. So
Absolutely.
so I worry. So there's a lot of history that you mentioned. I think a lot of that comes to the veneration of your knowledge, trying to figure out what is and isn't good.
Mhm.
It's just to understand the history because, and this is again, this is something I brought up in the other Discord I'm in, is that this book that we read is good if you take into context when this book was written and published,
Yes.
because things have changed. And it's no longer accepted as a true practice because things have been updated, new knowledge has come out. So you have to get your safe spot, your friends, your group of people that you're okay with. You have to vet your sources, do some knowledge, do some history finding. I think that's where we're at now.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of doing the work.
It's a lot of doing the work, and the next is going to be putting it into practice. So that is a big step because a lot of people they're what we've termed armchair magicians, where yeah, they've gathered the knowledge, but they don't have the experience to back it up. And they're just like, you're doing that wrong. It's just like, okay, where's your personal experience? Where is your personal experience in diving into this? Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you do not have that to back yourself up, you don't understand that, yes, this may not be the way that it's completely written, but not every practice is going to work the way that it's written. And magical practices, the more you become familiar with them, the more that you become comfortable in doing them, in communing with gods, goddesses, entities, spirits, elementals, anything of that sort, you find that there's a more comfortable way for you in particular to work with them. So being rigid to the practices, yeah, that helps you start, but then it's like, what was it that Bruce Lee said? You have to learn the practice first. You do the work,
Yep.
you put
Yeah.
in the steps.
Fear
And
not the man that's practiced 10,000 kicks. Fear the man that's practiced one kick 10,000 times.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No, it
Because
makes sense.
then you're able to form it to yourself
Okay.
versus I'm taking on the rigid practice of somebody else who had a different energy, who had a different body, who had a different way of living. I am molding this to myself now because I understand it at its fundamental level.
I think there's a step between get your group of people to help you understand because you're going to need that support. If I don't
Yes.
understand it, I need to group out. Hence, big shout out to my friends Eminem and King. Thank you guys. You helped me clear up a lot of stuff and got me to go into some other fields that I normally wouldn't delve into. Shameless plug at the end of this Discord. Um, but also the other Discord that I'm a part of. But you get that, you do your history, do your research, venerate that, and then you jumped right into start your practice. I think there is a step worth noting.
Okay.
You have to, and I hate to use it in this context, but please, people who are listening, please understand what I'm about to say because I will go back and explain. You have to, for lack of a better term, sacrifice yourself to it. And I don't mean anything stupid like, oh, I'm going to cut my hand for the. Shut up. Stop. Edge
Thank you.
lords.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
But there's
Okay.
going to be a moment where you're going to get this pit in your stomach or in your heart or this cold chill on your shoulder where you just have to make that leap, that blind leap of faith. And faith is a huge word in that because you ask anybody, especially in a lot of our different circle of groups in indoctrinations and hearths that they don't use the word religion. They use faith or belief because that's what it is.
Mhm.
Because religions have certain political aspects and yada yada yada. That's another podcast. But you're going to get this moment where you have to have it, and you have to trust yourself. You have to trust what's on the other side. You have to take that blind leap because at this point, I've now made the decision. I want to be a part of this. I've talked to this group of people. I now understand these things. I've done my research, done my knowledge. Anything I wasn't sure about, I've questioned and gotten the answers I needed, and now I have to do it. I have to do that
Mhm.
ritual. I have to do that prayer. I have to do that um, blot. I have to do that uh, divination. But it's scary. You have to make that blind leap.
I would say it's less of a blind leap in that. And I love surrender. Okay. And I say I love it. That is complete sarcasm. I fucking hate surrender more than anything because I am a
Yeah.
stubborn ass. Um, and being out of control of something is fucking scary to me, right? So, yes,
But it's that
surrender.
faith. It's
It's
that faith.
surrender and faith definitely is an aspect. And even from that, so with that, I can actually pull from like the first time I ever actually was able to meditate. So, um, with that being said, it was about 5 years ago, I think, 5, 6 years ago.
Okay.
I had been trying since I was 14, and I could not quiet my mind. I could not get the thoughts to stop racing. Like, I couldn't get out of my head in a sense. And
Okay.
I know now that meditation is more of going into an observer state of those thoughts, but I couldn't pull myself into an observer state um, at that time period. I didn't know how, and I didn't have people because as soon as my junior year of high school hit, all of a sudden, all of the friends are scattered to the wind, and I'm alone. And I was alone from the age of 17 to the age of 29
Oh wow.
in terms of my
Wow.
practice. I kept it to myself. I didn't open myself up. I didn't make myself available. I didn't talk to people about it. Um, it was a dark decade. It was a
Oh
dark
yeah.
decade of my life, and I think
Sounds
everybody
like it.
goes through it in a sense. Where you have that safety net, you have those people, you have that communion and that flow of energy, which is so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, just everything crashes down and you have no foundation any longer and you're just free floating. Wow, I'm slightly getting emotional about that
But
one. Holy shit. But,
it is a surrender though because I've embraced the same chaos.
oh,
I
absolutely.
embraced the same chaos when I was 16. I lost everything. Um I lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
I totaled my car.
Ooh.
I was failing out of school. Um, I lost my girlfriend because I got bad counselor advice. F that guy. We're not getting into that. I was kicked out of the band that I started. I know that sounds trivial, but
No,
shut up.
that
Okay, I
actually is
started
huge
that band.
because
I got kicked
creativity
out of
is
that.
like a huge energy
I lost
absorption.
all my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I lost everything.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to the hospital for 2 weeks in quarantine.
Oh.
But it is that moment of breaking point.
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
describing all these things, and my first thought was, there's a group of Tibetan monks that they have this level of monk that I wish I was kidding. I just watched an article about it that out of 1,000 monks that do this, like maybe two will actually succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, it drains everything out of you. You spend like I think it's 100 days in a blackened box that you cannot like you have to be in constant meditative state. You can only live off of the bark of a tree. Like it's ridiculous, but it is that designed to take you away from everything, to remove everything else that can be viewed as a negative distraction,
Mm-hmm.
have you focus on the positive. So, yeah, that was a rough life for you, but it put you in a right mindset, though,
Oh, it
to
did.
help
It did.
open
And
yourself or surrender yourself.
oh, absolutely. And where I believe I was
And I don't
27.
encourage anybody here to lock themselves in a box for
Please don't do
100
that.
days.
No, don't do that. No, I was 27 and I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to try and do it again because I would try intermittently throughout the years to try and just kind of like quiet the mind, to bring peace to myself, just to try and go into the observer state, trying to just meditate and commune and feel that kind of connection again, to my surroundings. And one time, just the one time, and it was like I was completely still. It was like the river, like that, like whitewater, like rafting type river.
Hmm.
It was like all of that shit just went to complete glass.
Oh,
Like
wow.
just still glass. Everything was still. And the visual that I was using was a golden root coming out of me, coming out of my tailbone and just sinking into the earth. I could feel every bit of dirt moving around it, um, because my consciousness was actually moving with it.
So you
And
sacrificed yourself.
I did.
You literally made the statement. I said, "Fuck it," and went for it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I
I
did.
I'd be willing to bet, given that emotion associated with it, you pretty much, for all intents and purposes, had, in at least in your mindset, I have nothing else. Let me have something, please.
Yep,
And you gave yourself up.
I did.
And
I
I
did.
I think that's where this end of it is that you've now gone from this transition from I'm an awkward teenager, wanting trip pants and listening to Depeche Mode in the forest with my friends, to I've done the work, I've done the history, to the point where now I've given everything to myself, and now that I've gotten that little taste like a drug addict, now I have to have more. And now I have to do more. I
Kind
use the
of.
drug.
Kind of.
It's a bad analogy
A
for it, but
bad analogy.
you see that it's
I
there.
kind of get what you're going for, but
It pushed back.
I will push back just a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
it pushed back at you. You put yourself out there, and you
no,
got that
I
resonance in
went with it.
return.
I went with it. I followed the route. My consciousness followed the route down, and it came to this golden egg. And I had, like, in meditation practices and everything, I had never seen something like this before. And as everybody who has listened to the channel before knows, like, yeah, I will get visuals at times and I will see things before they happen at times, um, or an interpretation of what's going to happen, more of like a abstract form, and I can kind of understand what's going to happen from that. I had never seen something like this. Inside of the egg, like the shell of the egg went translucent, and I watched this golden figure of a woman. Her eyes open and she woke up and she broke the egg, and I watched her start glowing. And at that moment I kind of realized I am her and she is me, and I found myself again.
Yeah,
And from that, it's just like, yes, the last couple of years after that have been hectic, but it's more of coming into myself, shedding the layers that I was supposed to, because yes, the seed woke up, the egg woke up, and it sprang back to life. And the growing process is not linear, it is not smooth, it is not easy. And so from there, being able to actually dig in my roots and start growing to the sun again, versus almost being asleep. So, yes, that surrender and that willingness to actually put yourself in it fully, wholly, completely, that is a necessary component. I will say that I think starting a practice and then giving yourself to the practice because something is calling you and you have to make that jump. I think there are two different ways to go about it. Yes, you can go ahead, dive in the deep end right off the bat, do that. I didn't. And I don't necessarily suggest that you do. I more so suggest that you try the practices, you see what feels good, you do that. And then, only then, if things are lining up for you, then do you surrender in.
There are no one is saying to jump fully in the deep end, but what I mean by make that leap is through the knowledge and things that you're going to be learning and studying, you're going to see things that it's like maybe I should try this. And you're going to look at it's like, oh god, what's a good example? Um did you ever play music? Were you ever a musician at all, Dev?
Oh, honey, you haven't heard me sing, have you?
Okay. So, did you jump into immediately habanera?
Habanera.
It's an opera. It's an aria. Did you immediately jump to opera?
No, I started going towards opera more in eighth
So
grade.
you probably started around with like Mary Had a Little Lamb,
Yes.
Happy Birthday.
Oh, yeah. From the
It's
age
the
of two
same.
years old, and I haven't shut up
So
since.
I know. Trust me, I work with you. Um, but it's the same thing. I'm a musician myself. I've been playing since I was 13, and I would love to be the next Tommy Emmanuel, which please, for the love of God, somebody go Google Tommy Emmanuel classical gas. Huh. Hmm. Anyway, but you don't just jump to that. You got to start with the smaller ends of it, and that's what I mean by making that leap is because you're going to sit there and you're going to see Dragon Force through the fire and flames, for lack of a better term, because most people know what the hell I'm talking about with that regard.
Mhm.
But you have to start with, I don't know, Mary Had a Little Lamb. You know what I mean? You got to start small. But it's
Absolutely.
the aspect of making that leap that I'm actually going to put forth the effort or put in the work to actually go forth and try this and see how I do. And I'm going to want to continue because you're going to fail. I mentioned it the last time we talked about my first encounter with the old gods.
Mhm.
That was not my first attempt. It was not. It was probably my third or fourth.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Absolutely. But that was the one where you actually, like,
but I
instead
had to
of
make that
half
leap.
assing, you whole assed it. Like,
I
whole
had to
ass
make that
there.
leap.
Yes.
I had to make that leap because there was a point where I looked at that blot and I said to myself, this is what I need right now. And I made that leap. So by no stretch are you and I are saying that you have to jump right to the deep end, go for the deepest free dive record, 900 meters. No, no, God, please, no.
No,
Put your water wings on, jump in the kiddie pool, and hang out for a minute
there's
until
something
you're
that
ready to
Twisted
jump with the
says all
big
the
kids.
time. Put in your 10,000 hours.
Oh my God, him and I would be friends because I'm a firm
I
believer.
know.
So, for those of you who do not understand what the 10,000 hour theory is, the belief is if you practice something for 10,000 hours, you will become a master. There's a practical application of this in music, actually, and that is the Beatles. So the Beatles disappeared for about 4.5 years. If you take 10,000 hours and break it down to 8-hour days, it's about 3.5 years. The Beatles disappeared for 4 years in England, where they bought a place underneath a bar. They were renting out the basement of a bar, and they disappeared for 4 years. And then that following year, they came back and blew up all over American Bandstand and this, that, and the other. And they're like the biggest thing since sliced bread and yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
10,000 hours freaking works. Am I
10,000
saying?
hours and the 10 dark years. That's the two things that he talks about all the time. I tried to get him to come in for this talk.
Oh,
He didn't want to.
10,000 hours. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I'm interested in his 10 dark years theory. So now, so to bring it back home, you have your safe space. And I'm saying safe space because it's the place that you feel the most comfortable to do research and ask the quote unquote, I do say quote end quote, stupid questions because you're going to feel like you're asking stupid questions and they're not.
Or you're going to ask questions earnestly and they're really, really dumb because you just haven't thought it through.
Or you haven't gotten to that part of your study.
I mean,
You
that
have
too.
your you have your safe space with your blankie. Then you have your study. Then you have your leap of faith. Then you have your doing the practice. Now what? Now what do I do?
Now you go with the flow. Honestly, the moment that you surrender yourself to it and you allow yourself to go like whole ass into something, it is more going with the flow and continuing to expand. Do not stagnate. That is the main thing. Like, don't sit there and pigeonhole yourself into one fucking thing. That irritates me more than anything else. There is a Be an expert at something. Be a motherfucking expert at something. Absolutely. But if you are not continuing to learn and continuing to expand, you are killing yourself and your potential so quickly.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about ancient practices, for lack of a better term. There is new knowledge coming up often, there's new interpretations, there's new readings, there's new writings, and there's new discoveries. We were talking about that last week, actually, of the
Mm-hmm.
discovery of that coin that changed the timeline for
Yes.
Norse polytheism, because
Absolutely.
they put it roughly 5,000 to 10,000 BCE or before Christian expanse, and now they're seeing things well into the 12th, 13th, and even 14th centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So it's putting it way further. That changes a lot of mindsets.
Oh,
So you
absolutely.
have to keep learning. And again, like I made the reference earlier, there's a gentleman who is a part of a Discord that I'm with that for the longest time, the greatest of friends, we called him the omnipotent beard. He was a wonderful human being. Turns out some of the things that he views not so great. So there's a constant change. You have to keep learning. You have to keep trying. You have to
Mm-hmm.
keep going.
You have to keep expanding, and when you hit a roadblock in your practice, like you're expanding into it and this is like the path that you're going, then you start to branch out to your people and look for different perspectives, because they may see a simple solution to the roadblock that you're facing, or it may
Hmm.
be that you need more than one person to complete it. It is about allowing that expansion of self and continuing to learn and to grow. I will say, I do not believe there is a single master on this planet.
No,
Period.
absolutely not.
Everybody is an adept. Everybody is a journeyman. That is where we are. That is where we will stay. I will never, never in a million years consider myself a master at everything, because I continue to learn and to grow. Because even in like tarot cards, right? Like going through like the Rider Waite deck or anything like that, just going through the imagery and learning all of that and the interpretations into the Kabbalah, and just all sorts of practices that kind of fed into the imagery and everything. Like, I get so interested in that. It's just like, okay, awesome, that's a way to interpret it, and that's the story that it's telling. And yes, we know the story of the fool to the world, and his journey through the major arcana. Cool. But like actually feeding into all of it, like it's beautiful. Learning the story of the runes, and if we go through Elder Futhark, and then into, oh my gosh, the other name is,
There's younger Futhark, and then you start.
mm-hmm,
For the most part, they look at you have essentially four. You have Elder Futhark, younger Futhark, which adds more
Mm-hmm.
runes to it, about another, I think, 8 or 9. Then you have the Anglo-Saxon Futhark,
Yep.
which I think they just refer to as Anglo-Saxon, and then there's Icelandic, and
Oh yeah, and
now
then
we're
there's
starting to get
the
now we're starting
Ohim,
to get,
the
oh yeah, oh
Ogham
yeah,
runes that are the I believe those are more of like Ireland and
yeah, they're
everything
more
like that. But you
they
have
for
them
sure
all
like
over the
Celt,
place.
yeah,
You
oh
you have
yeah.
them all over the place and like going into that and like feeding into the mysteries of it and what they mean and where they come from and things like that. Like all of that, just you have one thing flowing into the next, flowing into the next, flowing into the next. There is a never ending flow of this kind of information, so don't stagnate yourself. If you reach a roadblock, that's where you reach to your people.
So it's funny you mentioned master, and
Mm-hmm.
for some reason my brain went back to high school. So I spent, oh god, like 5 years training to join the military, and I never get to join due to medical discharge, which is fine. But I had this cadre by the name of Sergeant Sanchez, and I know for a fact he'll never listen to this because that man is awesome, okay? But he used to say this thing, and I hated it. He said, mediocrity is not an option, perfection is the standard. And I hated it until I became an adult because then I understood what he was saying. Mediocrity is not an option, perfection is the standard. What he means by that is if you're going to do something, put forth the proper effort to do it correct.
Yeah,
If you fail, that's okay. But at least you can walk away from that saying, I did everything within my ability to do it right.
absolutely. And
Because
failure is not a bad thing.
it's not. Fail, you know this. Phil told me this years ago, about 4.5 years ago. Phil
Mm-hmm.
told me this. Fail is an acronym. It's a first attempt in learning.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's weird that that individual has that kind of level of profanity, or that man is
No,
profanity. But
profanity. No, I know what you
yeah,
meant. It's fine.
but but
Proficiency.
for but for me, when I used to hear Sergeant Sanchez say that, it used to piss me off because perfection doesn't exist. If
Mm-mm.
perfection existed, there'd be no need to move to the next step. If that were the case, we wouldn't have cell phones, we wouldn't have the cars that we do, we wouldn't have the technology and type of living that we do. There's always something to move forward to. But put forth that effort to become better. There's always another step.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Norse polytheist. I wear that badge very proudly. I am not a closet theist that we'll get to in a minute, as my brain is now saying, hey, don't forget this.
Fantastic.
But
Let me light some incense because my dog just gassed me. It's horrible. Oh God.
mine's been doing that all night, and we are getting towards the end of her story, and we're just bracing for impact on that one.
Got you.
Anyway, um, as I just completely lose my train of thought here. Thanks.
You're welcome.
There's no such thing as perfection. You have to keep moving forward. I'm a Norse polytheist. I'm not a closet theist, but there's so much that I have to learn. Courtesy of King, and courtesy of MM, and courtesy of Nemesis. I didn't forget about you, Nem. I know you jumped in our Discord last week and like said a few things that bounced out. I was paying attention. You thought I wasn't, but I was. I'm now starting to get into other ends.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier I mentioned I don't like a certain thing because I don't like looking into the future. What is that, Dev? What do I not like messing with?
Divination.
What did I do before we jumped into this call?
Oh, absolutely. You pulled some rune cards.
I did. I pulled Wunjo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't mess with divination, but I want to continue pushing forward. That's part of the work that I have to put in. I have to keep pushing myself because there's more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much just to say I follow ABC. I have to understand what I follow. And for those of you that are doing this, you have to get that point that I have my safe space. I know where I could talk about these things. I know where I could practice these things and feel totally safe. I've I need to do more knowledge and more studies. But part of that is me following that blind leap because I had to make that jump because I mentioned last week in a private call that we all had, I don't like divination. I don't. I don't like seeing into the future. I think whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we should be grateful for what happens, be it good or bad. But now I'm now 5 days straight with a pull.
Mm-hmm. It just
I
honestly,
don't know how I feel about it,
honestly, doing a pull a day, I find it gives you kind of a observer state for the day, so you're not getting so attached to the outcome of the day.
but for me, if nothing else, even if I don't fall that hard into divination like you do,
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning the runes
You absolutely are.
because I have to continue learning. See, people, I may be drinking whiskey, but I'm keeping it back on track. Here we go. Because for those of you that are inclined, Wonjo, it looks like a P. It is about the translation of joy, happiness, celebration, harmony, and family. And I pulled it for tomorrow, or technically today as we record this. A little peer behind the curtain, people.
Woohoo,
Uh,
2
we're
a.m.
actually we're actually taking my mother-in-law to go finally buy a car.
Hey.
A which she is family. A which is something positive. A which means I get to learn what Wonjo is.
Hey, it all ties back. And honestly, just bringing little practices like that into your daily makes things so much easier. Like me, I'd pull my tarot card of the day for myself, and then I pull a tarot card of the day for the tiki talk. Right? I do
The
that.
ticky tack.
The tiki
The
tack.
ticky tack. But that's where you said that the evil edge lords live and they do the things
They
with the
can, they can. There is always going to be gold amongst the dirt. You just may have to dig through the shit first. Not everything is going to be all bad. Not everything is going to be all good. Right?
I
So
mean that's a fair statement, yeah.
that's
Everyone thought they were going to get rich off of pyrite and they're broke as hell, but at the same time, everyone thought coal was just blatantly useless and for heating until you put enough years and pressure on it.
100%.
That makes sense. 100%.
All right. I think. All right. So you said you had one more topic.
Is it the shameless plug time?
It might be the shameless plug time.
Is it the shameless plug
I
time?
think
Okay.
so.
So first and foremost, to those of you that listen to Dev's podcast and whatnot, thank you for listening to her podcast, and double thank you for listening to my mindless rant because I am. I say this as a joke, so don't start flaming me in the comments section. I'm a brilliant idiot. And what I mean by that is that I know just enough to get in trouble. But we had a conversation last week. It was you, me, several other people. Light was in there. King was in there. Eminem.
Hmm.
Um, Nemesis was in there. And we made the conversation that I learned a lot of bad stuff when I first started. I learned some dumb things. And that's okay. Again, I just didn't vet the source because I'm
You were
one of those.
new.
I
It was. It
I was new.
happens. It
Yeah,
happens.
but I've made the decision. I need to go back. I need to go back and I need to start relearning things because I can't speak for every sect of practice. I can't speak for your end, which I don't know which end specifically you fall under for your witchcraft, for lack of a better term. I just know you do tarot and things like that. That's the only end that I know.
Think more Earth.
Okay.
Earth magic, things like that. I don't
And again,
necessarily follow a pantheon. I kind of commune with a few of them because I find them to be more primordial energies anyway, and they just like slap a name on them.
and it's the same thing with Jack. Jack seems to be the same way.
Hmm.
Um, but I've made the decision that I'm going to start showcasing my trek back through from the beginning. I have spent some decent money for other reasons, but I have a fancy little camera here. And I think I need to put myself in front of that fancy camera. That, oh shit, I don't even think you know about this camera. It's not that camera, people. It's not that camera.
Oh, it's
Keep in
not the
mind,
one
I
that
don't
goes
got
for
it.
your OnlyFans. Got you.
No, no, no. It's not my OnlyFans camera. If you think I won't start a pagan OnlyFans, you are high. It's
I
just gonna be, it's just gonna be me sitting around reading the Eddas.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
I have every intention of starting. I've been given this weird mindset that I need to do this, and I've had the thought of doing this for a while. And the reason why I didn't is because there's so many people out there that do the same thing. I want to start a maybe a podcast or a video set. I haven't 100% locked that in, but I'm going to start something for the Norse theology and the Norse polytheism end of it,
Beautiful.
of showing the work. Because I am, for all intents and purposes, going back to the beginning. I'm going back to the Eddas. I'm starting from scratch. I have books. I want to talk about things because it is a much like many other falls of this, not just in Norse end of it, but other ones as well. Earth magic, moon magic, Pop Tart magic, whatever magic you want to follow. It's a craft of homework, and I hate homework. But if I have something that makes me want to put that out there, then maybe I might be more inclined to do the work.
Hey, sounds good to me.
So I have every intention of either recording audio for it, or at the very least, or recording video, or at the very least recording audio and posting it here in the Discord. And I will give rights to you. So if you want to throw that out there, you do what you want to do.
Hey, I would love to have those segments on. I
Because
would
I'm
love
a
to do that.
gigantic wuss. I am a modern day Viking, but I am a gigantic wuss.
Hey, you know what? I'm all here for those segments and learning about them and having those readings on here. I'm 100% for it.
But I'm
Absolutely.
I'm I'm one that I want to explain some of these things because King and I had some conversations, and so did Eminem, and it made me think that this information needs to get out there.
Yes.
So my shameless plug, I don't have a name for it because I've been drinking. I had a name for it. I did not write it down because I thought about it while driving. Um,
Understandable.
but the idea is that I will be doing these things, and I would love to partner up with you, and I want Jack involved. So
Okay.
Jack, if you're listening, at some point through this podcast, if you're listening, you don't get a choice. You get to be a part of this. Welcome to chaos.
Sounds fun.
Because you know, this all solidified because of that schmuck.
Mhm.
Because he made a pull, and his little homies. God,
His Purgatory Angels. Yep. They came up and they gave you a kick in the ass.
remember that part where I said I hate you and your people, Dev?
Yep. I very much remember that 100%.
I hate you and your people, Dev.
Mwah! Love you so much.
It's said from a loving place because they're pushing me to want to be better. Because this is the hearth. He says as you choose ice.
Oh,
This is
100%.
a hearth. This is a safe space because
It
I
is.
don't. My dad doesn't. My wife supports. She does not practice, but you have to have that community. So now I have to go. I found my community. I have two communities I'm a part of that are very supportive. I now have to go back and redo the research. I'm taking that blind leap, as I will be doing a recording probably tomorrow, maybe. We'll see how much sleep I get. Maybe. Probably not. Maybe.
Maybe.
Taking that blind leap and then following through with it because that at the end of the day is doing the work.
Absolutely it is. No, I am excited about that. I am excited.
It
I
all
would love
came
to have
back,
you
people.
I would love to have you read the Eddas and put out some more of the Nordic research and have conversations, and I would love to have that. So I'm here for it.
Absolutely. And like I said, Eminem and King don't get a choice. They have to be a part of it.
Oh, 100%. We've already dragged him
Because
on the
this
channel several times.
because it's not just because they know more, because they do. It's because they know the other end of it. because I
Mm-hmm.
know it from a Norse end of it, as opposed to Anglo-Saxon, as opposed to Germanic. They know it from an Icelandic, which, given the conversation, apparently that's a whole other field.
Well,
I
Viking
didn't
knows
even
it from the
know.
Icelandic. Eminem knows it from the Swedish. Like
Yeah,
she,
see,
they're over there. They live it.
that's more people because we mentioned a group of people that I won't mention on your channel, but they had no clue what the heck I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome because we're getting as raw as it can be.
Oh, 100%.
But I want to do that, and I want to have long discussions, and by long discussions, I want to figure out how to use this fancy recording equipment that I have over here sitting in the corner gathering dust that you and I both have that you actively use and I don't use. Um,
Hey, maybe we'll make music. It'll be fun.
I mean I could, but I want to do long podcasts. I want to do long recordings where it's just
Fuck yeah.
us just riffing.
Fuck yeah. I will. I'll get with Twisted. We'll see what we can do. Sounds
Late
like fun.
night heathenery. Grab your
Woo!
drink and your smoking jacket.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for doing the work. And that gives us something really exciting to look forward to because I'm excited about that. I'm absolutely
Absolutely,
excited
and
about that.
and I will make the statement that if you are curious about where to put in the work and put in the effort, oh, this is dangerous territory, but F it full send. If you are curious about Norse polytheism or any form of theism, and you're curious about how to go about doing the work, hit me up on Twitter. I am at BenignFool. That is BenignFool. I have no problem reaching out because by practice or by trade, I am a Unitarian minister, which means I practice all religions. But by personal practice, I'm a Norse polytheist. I want to help you get to a point where you feel happy because that is all we deserve in this world. So please, if you have questions following this, go hit me up. Be like, yo, I joined you from I'm hitting it from Dev Stream. This is my question, and I will do the best of my ability to answer you. And if I don't, I literally have two full discords of people that can help you get the answer, and I will help you get in touch with them. Do the work. It's worth it at the
Oh,
end of the
absolutely
tunnel.
it is. Absolutely it is. But this is Devi and Benign Fool on the Open Resorcery, and we will see you guys next time.